President Harry S. Truman once said, "The decision to drop the bombs on Japan was no great decision. It was simply another tool in the arsenal of righteousness." It is my belief that President Harry S. Truman was justified in his decision to drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki because I believe he was choosing the least terrible of all the options available to him. The reason why this topic matters so much to me is because even in the modern day, it's still hotly debated, and many people believe that America fell on the wrong side of history when it chose to make that controversial decision because they viewed it as immoral and unnecessary. I don't believe these people know Truman's side of the story, and to me, a person should make sure they know both sides to a story before they decide whether an action was moral or immoral. It's because of this that I'm going to tell you Truman's side of the story today and why I believe he was justified in his actions. The first reason why I believe Truman was justified in his decision is because he was faced with a choice. The first option he had was to launch a full-scale military invasion of the Japanese home islands that would have resulted in over 1 million U.S. military casualties and several million Japanese civilian casualties. In addition to this, in the event of a U.S. military invasion of Japan, the Japanese military planned on executing thousands of American prisoners of war. The second option available to President Truman was to drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nagasaki was an industrial target and Hiroshima was a military target. In the end, about 250,000 Japanese civilians died in the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but the bombings of those two cities showed Japan that the defense of the homeland was hopeless, and this averted a full-scale military invasion that would have caused the death of millions more people and the deaths of thousands of U.S. military prisoners of war. You may find yourself wondering, why were the bombs necessary? Why would a land-based invasion even have been necessary? Japan was on the verge of surrendering, wasn't it? This is actually a myth. The Japanese military was a firm believer in Getsu Go, which is Japanese for decisive battle. The Japanese wanted to decisively battle the Americans on their homeland because they still believed that they could decisively defeat the U.S. military even though they were currently losing the war. And it actually took the unprecedented intervention of Japanese Emperor Hirohito to force the military to stand down, allowing peace to be made. Japanese Emperor Hirohito, seeing the devastation caused to Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and knew that the military would not be able to defend the homelands. The military wanted to continue fighting even after the bombs were dropped, but Emperor Hirohito would not allow it. In addition to these reasons, I also believe it was a good idea to drop the bombs because it solidified American power in the region and it kept the Soviet Union out of Japan. In the original plans for the U.S. invasion of Japan, the Soviet Union was going to help, and if the Soviet Union helped, Japan would have ended up looking like Germany did at the end of the Second World War. It would have been divided like Germany was, with a wall running straight through the middle of it, one side being controlled by the Soviet Union, and the other side being controlled by America. And I believe this would have fundamentally changed the Japan that we know today. It is because of these reasons that I believe Truman was justified in the decision that he made. In the end, leaders every day are faced with impossible decisions where neither option seems very good, but the decision still has to be made. The best leader chooses the decision that's the least terrible of all the options available, and to me that's exactly what Truman did. Over 70 million people died in the war to end all wars, and to me, Truman's actions saved millions of lives that would have otherwise been lost. Japan, once a sworn enemy of the United States, is now a close trading partner and ally, and that's because America's legacy is not committing unnecessary war crimes. America's legacy is doing what needs to be done to end the most terrible war in human history, and after that, helping to rebuild the countries that we destroyed to make them great, just like the United States is.